So, Michael, thank you for this.
It's a pleasure, Julie. Hi.
So, as our most experienced trainer by now,
Okay.
20 years or something it's been, haven't it? You have literally trained managers and leaders how to coach around the world in every type of situation that certainly I could imagine.
Yes.
Lots of different sectors, organizations, from the smallest to the largest. And, you know, different cultures, you've got a vast amount of information. So this is really just about understanding from you, what are the, you know, why would we do this thing called coaching? Why would we bring it into the workplace? What is it here to do for us? You know, what are the primary considerations either an organisation might make or individuals that want to kind of pull this stuff in, that have a sense it could be good, but, you know, want some more traction in terms of fundamental building blocks and ideas that shape those considerations, and also helping people kind of take those ideas forward. It's like, how would I, if I wanted to begin this, how would I begin? So if you're all right, I might just start with the question, why would we do this? Why would we teach managers and leaders how to adopt these coaching principles and behaviours in their workplace?
Well, it's a great question, you know, and it's a question that every organisation asks. Why? You know, why are we doing this? So it's all about benefits to the business ultimately, and you know, this ability to influence other human beings through conversation is a fundamental foundation that the business builds its success on. You know, it drives engagement, it drives development, it drives performance, it drives the culture in the organisation, because broadly conversation is the stuff, you know, minute by minute that goes on in every organisation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the content and the nature of that, you know, is fundamental to who that organisation is and how successful it is.
And so, you know, through thousands of hours and probably thousands of events of doing this, what's the impact that you see both on the individual as they start to equip themselves with this stuff, and also the environments? You know, what effect are they having as they go back into the workplace with these new skills and beliefs and behaviours?
Well, if we start with the managers or the people who are being coached, typically, I guess a number of things happen. The first of which is they start to understand that actually they probably know more than they thought they did, you know, about their job. They start to feel more empowered because of that. And because of the trust that their manager is showing in them, if you like, that's implicit in a coaching conversation, they can start to grow into that space. So, you know, they take better decisions, faster decisions. They tend to refer to their managers less, so involving their managers less in situations that managers don't need to be involved in. And I'll go on to that benefit in a second. I think their engagement in their job increases because people feel more committed to things that they've decided for themselves or ideas they've had for themselves, you know, and they will see that through. So typically the organizational capability rises, you know, individual by individual.
As people start thinking and acting for themselves.
That's right. And then the managers, of course, you know, find themselves drawn less into perhaps situations they should never have been involved in the first place, to focus more on their agendas, which typically are more about the longer term success of their area, a little more strategic, if you like, in focus. So that's helpful to the organisation. You know, they're doing much more setting up the organisation and its success for tomorrow, rather than focusing on fighting fires now.
And how does this change the dynamic of the relationship between the manager? So when the manager stops kind of managing the detail and telling everybody what to do and the kind of minutiae of the everyday stuff, how does that change the dynamic between the manager and their teams?
Well, it really is a sort of a turning on, if you like, of that relationship. So rather than it just be a sort of parent-child relationship where manager issues instruction and report executes, it becomes much more an adult-to-adult conversation, you know, where there's much more mutual respect. The quality of output, if you like, of that relationship and the communications within it tends to rise because we're focusing on not just fighting fires. You know, it's much more value add in that sense.
So as I'm hearing you say this, as a wary manager, I'm thinking, are you telling me I'm going to be giving all of my control to everybody else and letting them do, I'm going to be asking them what they feel like they should be doing and then letting them do that? Like, how do I take back the reins?
Okay. And this is classically one of the things that concerns managers in taking on these new behaviors. What if it all goes wrong because I'm responsible? Yes. So I think a real reassurance to managers is that actually, this ability is part of a flexible style of conversation. Right. So because we're encouraging managers to coach, it doesn't mean to say they lose the ability to direct and control when that's required. Yes. And clearly a lot about business is not up for discussion. People do need clear direction. Yes. They do need to understand that things have to happen. Yes. It's not a question of whether we will or whether we won't. Yes. So I think that reassures managers a lot to understand that they can still have control and they can still give direction when that's required.
Yeah, so they don't have to coach all of the time once they've learned to coach.
And in fact, that gets very frustrating for people.
Yes.
If I go to my manager and all they ever do is ask me questions, I say, please just tell me.
At some point. Yes.
Particularly if I'm feeling stressed or under pressure. Right. And I need some help. Yes. So, this idea of flexibility that I can now influence across a wide spectrum of conversational styles as a manager is very reassuring.
Yeah. And indeed, that's why we developed the stepping stone model, to show people how much they can do up and down this scale of being directive to being less directive in terms of different behaviours, observations, summaries, opinions, advice, all of those different things, how to flex that style. So I think that what excites me about that is when we show people that, they really get switched on to, oh, okay, now I feel a bit more freed up. I guess the caution is, not to let a lack of ability stop you from, argue against coaching.
And, it's true that we're encouraging people, if they had a default, to be more towards the coaching end of that spectrum more of the time, because that's where possibility is.
Yes. What if I'm kind of sold on the idea? I think there's something for my organisation that whether it's engagement, whether it's productivity, whether it's matrix management, whatever I got going on there. I think this offers us something in terms of an enabler of what we already want to do. What are my considerations? What would I have to think about in order to start to bring this idea into the workplace?
Okay. So I think classically the first place to start is to get clear on the business benefits. What are we aiming for here? Yes. What's it going to do for us as a business? And then at what level in the organisation are we going to start? It's a sort of classic question. Should we start with the more senior levels, and have a classic cascade down the organisation? Yes. Should we deal with where the greatest need is? So, for example, often it can be where frontline managers who are managing customer-facing teams, for example, have the greatest need. Yes. So that could be a reason, to start there. It could be where there's already existing initiatives or things going on in the business that this can support around things like performance management or engagement initiatives, for example, or where there is a willing there's already energy in that direction. Typically we find people in organizations who are already doing this, whether they've been trained or not.
So kind of in a closet.
So often change happens from the middle. Those sort of middle managers who are the buffer between the more senior levels, if you like, and frontline people get the most benefit, and that's where they can if you like, put pressure upwards and downwards in the organisation for change.
Yes, and I've seen that. I've seen us start at the top, in the middle, down at this end, and it isn't always the difference that makes the difference. And it is about that engagement, that energy, that need, that positioning coaching as being the how behind the what somebody already wants to do in terms of the key initiative. I can absolutely see that.
There is no, I don't think there's any sort of classical, do it this way. It's really, about your context as an organisation.
And in terms of stumbling blocks, barriers along the terrain, what are the kind of pushbacks or things that you'd want to be wary about? What are the things that can, fall off in terms of derailment factors? What do I need to be wary about?
Okay. I guess typically, and I'm generalising here, but managers, find this type of behavioral change quite challenging, or can.
Yes.
Because it perhaps tends to feel like they are losing control. It is making them more vulnerable.
Yes.
Perhaps it's challenging their kind of sense of value that they're adding. Because if I can't fix or solve things for people, what am I here for?
Yes.
So actually there's quite a lot of stepping back and managers thinking about their role and the value they're adding, actually adding, and what more could they be adding. So I think it's about having some really sensitive and honest conversations, with those managers, with the target groups, about what this is going to do for them and their people.
Yes.
What are the benefits? This isn't just another of those initiatives. So there has to be some commitment to, stand behind this to sort of see this change through. So I think that's the second thing. Usually senior sponsorship is very helpful. If managers and organisation feel that that's what, their leadership want them to do, it is the culture they want in the organisation, and they will be supported in that, that's helpful. So it can be very difficult, or more challenging if I'm a manager and I want to coach, I see the benefits. Yes. But my manager does not, and it's putting pressure on me to deliver and perform and to tell and to fix.
So there has to be some lining up.
Some alignment, I think, is key, where that's possible. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So I guess in summary then, Michael, what final words of advice or encouragement, or, what would you say to anybody watching this?
I think it's for a whole host of reasons. For example, generational challenges. With new generational kind of influences coming into the world. Exactly, all of that. Managers have to be more flexible and more adaptable than ever before. Yes. I also think the challenge is to often continue to do more with less, and at the same time have people more engaged and committed. Yes. Means that this is, as far as I'm aware, one of the few ways that managers can bring these sort of things about and cope with this. So, if anybody's thinking about doing this, I would say absolutely do it, because I've seen the impact that it has, and it gives me a buzz every time I see that.
I bet. Michael, thank you so much. That's been fantastic. Thank you.
Pleasure.